Hey everyone, thank you for stopping by the channel. If you enjoy what Ray Cabana and I do, be sure to hit subscribe and enable the bell for notifications for more videos on abandoned places, mysteries, and cool things around the world. Also, don't forget to check us out on social media, links are in the description. If you enjoy cooking, video games, anime, and all things nerd culture, be sure to check out my second channel, Kabanov's Corner, as I prepare for Season 2 releasing in October. When we hit 1,000 subscribers, I will try the durian fruit on video. Anyway, now on to the show. What's up guys, Justin with the Podcast Dojo. Today on Abandoned Locations, we are going to be talking about Suntree III Mall. Suntree III has definitely worked its way up to becoming one of the most infamous dead malls, but why is that? Well, let's head over to Pittsburgh to find out. Suntree III Mall was a partnership between Edward DeBartolo and the U.S. Steel Corporation. DeBartolo wanted to build a giant mall because, that worked out so well once before, and that Steel Corporation had a large amount of steel that needed to be put to use. Suntree III is the fourth largest shopping mall in Pittsburgh area and for a time was the third largest shopping mall in the world when it first opened. Could this be where the name Suntree III came from? Well, actually no, the name comes from being built slightly after America's 200th birthday, and marked the start of the 3rd century for America. Suntree III had an interesting start. It actually opened in two phases. The first phase started in October 1979 with a 2-level JCPenney's and Kaufmann's. Phase 2 would begin in March of 1980 with a 2-level Montgomery Ward's and Sears and Gimbel's opening later that year, which were also 2 floors each. With 5 anchors, Suntree III was ready to start adding stores. Suntree III had an interesting start. It actually opened in two phases. The first phase started in October 1979 with a 2-level JCPenney's and Kaufmann's. Phase 2 would begin in March of 1980 with a 2-level Montgomery Ward's and Sears and Gimbel's opening later that year, which were also 2 floors each. With 5 anchors, Suntree III was ready to start adding stores. However, it didn't take long for anchors to swap out. Montgomery Ward closed in 1986 and was replaced right away by the Pittsburgh-based Horns, which became Lazarus in 1994. Lazarus would close in 1998. Gimbel's closed in January 1988 after the chain itself folded. It would stay vacant until 1993 when Marshall's took over the upper level and TJ Maxx took over the bottom level. Marshall's would be sold in 1996 with TJ Maxx staying until 2003. The Marshall's floor would become Wick's Furniture in 1997 until 2004 when it became Dick's Sporting Goods. TJ Maxx would become Steve & Barry's in 2003 until Steve & Barry's folded in 2009. Kaufmann's became Macy's in 2006 as part of rebranding, and then Macy's would close in 2016 as part of a mass store closure. Also in 2006, Simon Property Group saw the writing on the wall with Suntree III's fate and sold the property. The total mall's assets at the time were $66 million as of April 2009. Simon Property even defaulted on their loan for the mall and transferred the ownership to the lenders. Moonbeam, a Las Vegas-based company, owned the mall starting in 2013. I have some things to say about Moonbeam, but we will get there. The mall went through a lot of changes. The fountain was drained and filled with mulch. The food court in its prime was home to 20 eateries, and that number lowered to just Ruby Tuesdays, which would close in 2008. However, La Hacienda, a Mexican restaurant, would open in the former Ruby Tuesday spot in 2010, and that would be replaced with Old Mexico Restaurant in 2015. Old Mexico Restaurant closed in 2015, which left the mall with no food tenant, and of course even more stores continued to leave the mall as time went on. Moonbeam announced plans to redevelop the mall in April of 2019, only to announce 2 months later that the mall would be torn down except for the JCPenney, making Penny's the first and last tenant at the mall. Speaking of Moonbeam, I'll go ahead and talk about them as well as my overall thoughts on Suntree III. Suntree III, I think, has become one of the more infamous malls amongst the dead mall community, and with good reason. This place used to be very successful. People would even come from out of town to shop here. However, now, The mall has just become a shell of what it once was. I asked a friend from that area about it, and he said poor management ruined the mall. Based on what I've read and researched, I would have to agree. Moonbeam is another one of those property groups that is very unreliable. They remind me a lot of Kohan, where they talk a big game and then never deliver. In fact, they were definitely hiding what was going on inside the mall, because even towards the end, security was everywhere. I heard some people in the Den Mall community even say that security wanted to check people's phones to make sure no one was recording. Also, I want to mention that carpet in a mall is a really bad idea. I heard a lot of people complaining about how dirty the carpet was in the mall and that it even smelled horrible. Another question I had from my friend was how was the area around Suntree III? He told me that it was a very safe area with a lot of people because of the school district in the area. My friend also told me that there was a strip mall built next door to the mall on either side, which brings me to my next point. The area was just over-malled. In some ways it reminds me of Ohio, where there's so many malls that only the strongest malls survived. Overall, just poor management and too many malls were the downfall of Suntree III. I hope they can find something better to put in the area. Now the big question is what will happen to JCPenney's. My guess is that if Penny's ever starts doing mass store closures, that will probably be the first to go unless they find a home in another mall. Well guys, that was my video on Suntree III. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. If you ever went to Suntree III, tell me your stories down below. I'd love to hear them. I also want to encourage you all to check out Sal and Unicom Productions. They both do awesome work on Den Malls, but also covered Suntree III. Links will be in the description down below.